I've sunk hundreds of hours, if not over 1,000, into my indie game, and poured a lot of heart and soul, pun fully intended, into the movement, the levels, and the characters. But up until very recently, I had been approaching the project with the mindset, it's my first game, I can't expect it to be very successful. Well, why not? I recently watched a video by Chris Zukowski, which I'll link in the description, about marketing games on Steam, and while it was packed with loads of useful information, it also had some hard truths that didn't necessarily bode well for my game. Perhaps most important among these is that genre is one of the most important marketing decisions you've already made. If you're looking to make a deck builder, management sim, roguelike, or horror game, your chances of doing well on Steam are actually pretty decent. However, if you're like me and are making a game in one of the most saturated genres on the market, a pixel platformer, your odds of success are considerably worse. That's not a great start for my game. But surely there's a way to stand out, even in the midst of a saturated and hard-to-sell genre, right? Well, that's where the news potentially gets worse for me. One of the most important ways a game can stand out is its visual identity. If you're browsing Steam and see a game that is strikingly beautiful or has an incredibly unique art style, chances are that you're going to give it a second look, regardless of genre. Unfortunately, that isn't likely to be a selling point for Lost Resolve. Since I'm very inexperienced at art, Lost Resolve uses primarily free assets from itch.io. And while the assets themselves are made by some very talented artists, and even though I put a lot of effort into incorporating them in a way that's cohesive and fitting for my vision, there's no way around the fact that they weren't designed specifically for my game. And on a platform where the importance of having a bespoke visual style cannot be overstated, things are looking rough for Lost Resolve. I've considered commissioning custom assets for the game, but that would be a pretty decent expense and a big ask for the artist since the game's release is planned for early 2025. With that said, if you are a pixel artist and have a genuine interest in Lost Resolve, please hit me up. If it's the right fit, we'll work something out. I've even considered remaking all the game's assets myself, but where my goofy novice art style worked well for Alchemy Squid, I think it would feel out of place in a game with a more serious tone. So, assuming nothing changes, I'm making a game in one of the hardest to sell genres, and I can't rely on visual identity to help my game stand apart from the crowd. This had me beginning to wonder, does my game have an audience at all? Harkening back to Chris's video, he explained that there are 6 types of magic that can help a game do well on Steam, and there are 4 of them that my game definitely doesn't have. But the other 2 are where things get interesting. First, let's look at Underserved Audience. That might sound ridiculous considering the overabundance of pixel platformers on the market, but hear me out. In general, platformers tend to fall into one of 2 categories, those with rigid, precise movement, and those with fluid, momentum-based movement. And from what I've seen, the majority of popular platformers fall into the former category. Games like Hollow Knight, Mario, and Shovel Knight are prime examples of this type done well. Your movement is calculated and predictable, and there's an emphasis on precision over speed. In these games, your acceleration is typically fast or instantaneous, and your top speed is low. Examples of the latter category would be games like Sonic the Hedgehog, Pseudo Regalia, and Ori and the Will of the Wisps. In these games, the focus is less on precise stop-and-go movement, and more on preserving momentum or chaining together movement abilities to seamlessly navigate obstacles. In these games, your base acceleration tends to be slower, but you are rewarded for generating and maintaining speed. Games in this second category tend to be a little less common, especially ones where speed is a primary focus. There have definitely been a few successful examples like Freedom Planet and Neon White, but in my opinion, there's at least some gap in the market for this specific niche. And if I'm thinking critically about it, this is exactly the type of game I want to play most, and the type I wish there were more of. In fact, that's a big part of why I'm making Lost Resolve. I want there to be more games on the market that are fast, fluid, and addicting to speedrun. This brings us to the second type of magic that I think my game just might have: amazingly addictive gameplay. In his video, Chris goes on to explain that playing is believing, and there are certain games that have only taken off after release once people started playing and realized how incredibly addictive they were. I think Lost Resolve might have something special here. Throughout the development of the game, I've always been finding excuses to test the levels, over and over again. While designing the newest level yesterday, I found myself taking a slight detour for around an hour to see if I could beat it in under a minute. And I was pretty stoked when I finally got it. It seems that a lot of people who have tested it feel the same way. Every now and then, someone will chime in on Discord or Twitch about a new personal best they got on one of the levels, sometimes with a time even faster than my own. I think that, if anything, this relatively approachable speedrun potential is what sets the game apart. Even if you're not a speedrunner by trade, as you learn the ins and outs of the movement, you're bound to shave your level times down further and further, and after each run you're almost compelled to think, yeah, but I could do it faster. So to answer the question posed by this video, is there an audience for Lost Resolve? I think there could be. But even if not, I'm making the type of game that is most meaningful to me, and even if it fails, I won't have lost anything. At the end of the day, making games is just like any creative endeavor. If you're passionate about it, just do it, whether you're successful or not. At the end of the day, what matters infinitely more than revenue is whether or not you've done something you care about doing. And in the case of Lost Resolve, whether it sells or not, I know for a fact I'll be able to look back on the project and be proud of what I created. If you want to keep up with my journey, feel free to subscribe, follow me on Twitch, and wishlist Lost Resolve on Steam. I'll see you guys in the next video.